This is the Brilliantly Branded podcast, a safe place to have a voice and talk about branding and all the reasons that bring a brand to be brilliantly branded. I am your host, Maria Lucia Romero, a woman empowering other women, and I am welcoming you to this journey of learning and inspiration to build awareness around the world of business and the world of brands. This is the Brilliantly Branded podcast. Our guest today is a powerful and inspirational woman with the mission to empower 1 million climate leaders to build scalable solutions that fix the climate crisis. She is Helena Wasserman, who shares invaluable insights on the challenges women face in raising funds, emphasizing the importance of surrounding yourself with a diverse network. Helena has been working with organizations like the Clinton Foundation, Techstars, and she was listed on the Forbes Under 30 list, and as well, she is a top voice on LinkedIn. Her advice to show up every day with the same level of energy resonates deeply, reminding us of the persistence required for success. Helena also provides essential guidance for female entrepreneurs looking to navigate the fundraising landscape effectively, highlighting key topics that investors are currently prioritizing. So please, grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable to listen to this episode that will give you a lot of lessons to learn. And welcome one more time to the Brilliantly Branded podcast. So welcome one more time to the Brilliantly Branded podcast. My guest today is a powerful woman. She's a climate angel investor. She's a founder of Unstoppable, a brand that she will talk about more details later on. And she's a role model in the world of entrepreneurship and climate advocacy. She's Helena Wasserman, and she has been working with organizations like a Clinton Foundation, Techstar, and as well, she was listed on the Forbes Under 30 list. So she is a person full of inspiration and lessons to learn from her. So let's say welcome to Helena. And of course, the first question is I'm going to ask you if you can introduce yourself, Helena.
Thank you, Maria, so much for having me on the podcast. Great to be with all of you today. So my name is Helena Wasserman. I am half Swiss, half Italian. And I grew up in Switzerland and started my career at the Clinton Foundation in New York about a decade ago. I then decided I was going to make an impact through business. So I worked for Techstars, the accelerator, and I was part of one of the companies later on that was incubated by Techstars called Big Data for Humans. It was a big data startup that brought me out to Asia. We had raised a big funding round from Tony Fernandez, the founder of AirAsia. And one of us had to basically be opening the offices out there. So that's what brought me out of Singapore back in 2015. And I was there for a while, up until the pandemic. The pandemic was quite an event for many of us. And for me particularly, a lot of things in my life blew up, including my marriage. And so for me, that was a moment to, if you will, ask myself the big questions. Where do I want to spend my time? Who do I want to spend it with? Where do I want to be? And so that's when I redirected my entire career to climate. And so in climate, I run 3 organizations. One is Investors for Climate. We're a network of 170 climate investors globally. I also invest as a climate angel investor. I had my first IPO last week. Very, very proud. And then finally, I run a mentorship program called Unstoppable, where I support climate founders with fundraising and growth. So very, very focused on climate and being able to move the needle in that sector.
Yeah, wow. You just spread a lot of information to us. All your background is absolutely amazing. And all the things that you are doing right now, running the program Unstoppable, doing all the investment processes and the reasons why you end up doing that and deciding to go and
working as an angel investor in climate and all the things. So one of the questions that comes to me right now is basically how the top of the fundraising, for example, is part of the things that you are doing to spread a voice, and you are spreading that voice actually on LinkedIn. So you have been the top voice on LinkedIn to talk about that topic specifically. So what are the strategies actually that bring you to be actually selected as the top voice on LinkedIn? And what are the things that you are talking there?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share. So as you know, fundraising is an art more than a science, but there are some things that work. So the first thing is in terms of your attitude to being very assertive, being very confident, having what I call a commanding presence. So having impact more with your presence than talking too much. So I always say don't talk too much. Creating urgency and scarcity. So, the same way you do with sales, exactly the same things apply in fundraising. Fundraising is pretty much B2B sales. And then really knowing your industry inside out. So that when you're speaking to an investor, you can basically describe the whole landscape and educate them and make them understand why you are the best in your industry and why they should back you. And then another tip for women, which is actually to bring a man with you. Obviously, we are, people are used to giving money to men, and therefore it does make a difference as a woman if you're able to bring, a male co-founder or a male colleague with you. It does make a difference in terms of the outcome of the meeting.
Yeah, that was actually one of my questions related with how women have been raising funds in general. I mean, not just for climate, but actually, as you are an expert on that, and now you are advising bring a man next to you, so that the advice is don't go to be a solopreneur where you are going to investors and say, well, do you know, I appear here first as a woman and second alone. I mean, this is a no go. So for you, is bringing a man to your team in order to raising funds is one of the advices that you have now to share with us.
Well, just to clarify, I still think you can be a brilliant solo female entrepreneur. But I would say bring a man, whether it's an advisor or your chairman or one of your colleagues, just somebody in the room that is a man. It doesn't have to be a co-founder. And then the other one, the last tip is to actually always ask for feedback. So, put your ego aside, and when you get a no, ask why, and remember that a no always gets you, closer to the yes, if and only if you ask for feedback.
Yeah, it's a very wise way to say that. How we actually, I think in one other episode that I run with someone talking about investment, she was saying that guys are more, they accept more a no because they are more used to receive a no as an answer. We are not, as a women in general. So when somebody came and say no, we say, but why? Are you already feeling frustrated because of that? But men is easily. So actually having a man that advise you into the team is something very positive. And I really appreciate that you shared that with us. Another thing is a little bit more related with your personal life. I mean, these lessons that you have been learned during all this process, because you have been doing many things that you name it at the beginning, all those experience and all those things. What have been probably your personal challenges actually to really shaping your journey in the way that you have been shaping until now?
No, absolutely. So I'm a very passionate person. And what that means is that sometimes, I can work a lot and go, above and beyond. And then if I feel uninspired, I would, not put in the same amount of passion and work. And so one of my big learnings has been to really show up every day, no matter what is the actual outcome. Because the reality is things always take longer than we think. And the people who succeed are those who really, keep showing up day after day, whether things are working or not working, it doesn't matter. you're putting in the hours, you're putting in the work, you're staying focused on your vision. And so for me, being of a more passionate nature, this is something I had to learn to be like, it doesn't matter, what the outcome is, but I show up every day and put in the same amount of energy. And, they say if you're 1% better every day, it actually accumulates to 37 times better at the end of the year. So, keeping this in mind, you'll see like entrepreneurs like Sam Altman from OpenAI. I don't know if you know the story of the company, but between 2015 and 2022, it was all, more like stealth research mode. And then in 2022, it blew up and everybody started using ChatGPT. And I'm sure their timeline was different. And it's just a good reminder that, you show up every day and then you never know when things are going to really pick up to the level which you're expecting.
Yeah, that's completely true. I mean, you never know where the things are going to happen or how, actually. But showing up is true. Is something that is really a good advice to put it in practice as a part of all personal experiences. And coming back a little bit to Unstoppable, that is actually the program that you have right now, because I think that part of the things that you are giving and delivering in these programs include this personal attitude, these show up, these many other things. But what specifically is this program about, and what the people can learn from you there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Unstoppable is a mentorship program where I teach climate founders how to be amazing at sales, at fundraising, at mindset, so that they can close their funding rounds. I also give them exposure to investors through my Investors for Climate network. So the idea is they join and they manage to raise capital within the 6 months of being part of the mentorship program. And it's a very rewarding program. It's very fulfilling working with, climate founders who are the people that I admire the most, that are building, scalable solutions to fix climate change and helping them grow their companies in that way. So that's the program. And we launched a few months ago. And so far we have 10 entrepreneurs in the program. And it's going very well. And I'm very excited to continue on that.
Oh, wow, that sounds fantastic. But that, and just to give a little bit of context, because getting a mentorship program focuses just in climate investors or investments, there is something that people in general that wanted to learn how to invest assertively can be part of that, or how that works.
Exactly. So the reason why the program was born is because I was getting approached by a lot of climate founders asking me for introductions, for help with fundraising. And so I realized, no, I can't work with all these people one-to-one. And so that's why I started a program to be able to support them in a more structured way. So, we have a climate founder that works in Brazil doing regenerative farming. She, joined the program because she raised 200K right now and she wants to raise her first million. We have another founder who's already raised 2 million, who wants to raise another million, and who is doing AI for sustainability. We have a solar entrepreneur. Lots of super interesting founders that come to get support with fundraising.
Yeah. So people that wanted to really, because I know the round of fundraising is really something that have been catching many people around and saying, well, how can I do that correctly, and how really make the achievements related with that. So in terms of women, for example, it is a lot of things that happen around how we as a women can really learn how to go and get it, the funds, it's something that is not that easy. And there is part of the things and the questions that I will love you to share with us, your knowledge about how women can be prepared better to really get those funds out, because sometimes you go and do all the process of fundraising and you put it in practice. Okay, I'm going to not do that alone, but I'm going to bring all the people. But which other key things could you advise to those women that are right now wanted to raising funds?
Absolutely. So something that works very well with angel investors is organizing group investor calls. So, let's say you have you're raising capital right now, and you've spoken to a few angels, and they all said, "Oh yeah, that sounds interesting," but nothing has actually closed. Right? There's no no wires have been sent to your bank account. And so you're a little bit in this limbo. And so what's worked very well for me as an investor and as well as supporting companies fundraising is actually organizing these investor calls where there's 10 to 12 investors. You do the pitch, you bring in an investor on the call that has already backed you. So there's some confidence in the group that, you're backable. And then you basically, after the pitch, give them a 10-day deadline to come in at preferred terms. So for example, let's say your minimum ticket size is $100,000. Exceptionally for this group during this time period, you allow them to come in for $25,000. And there is a deadline. So that was my point about creating urgency. So it's very important that there's a deadline. Otherwise, there's no reason for people to do the wire now. So this is something that we do a lot. That's worked very well. I've raised about 2 million from angels throughout the years with that method. And it's very effective for people who can do fast decision making like angels. So less for VCs and families, but more for angel investors that have the capacity to decide fast on their investments.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. This is key information. And I am going to make many questions because I think that now that you are in front of us and we have all this audience. And the other question is, you mentioned pitch. So that pitch, actually, we already know, or well, many people, I am assuming that many people know what this pitch needs to have. But to make that really impactful for those investors, that the investors said, well, I get it, what they need to have.
Well, that will take a little longer to answer, but there's a lot of, very clear templates online, exactly what each slide should involve. And in terms of creating the perfect pitch, there's really a science. So there's a lot of different models where you know exactly what should be on slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, and you know exactly what the slide should look like. So happy to share that later in terms of a template of the typical successful pitch deck. There's a lot about but it would take a little longer to explain, but I'm happy to share that offline.
Yeah, of course, yes. And the other question is actually related with a little bit the way that you deliver that pitch. In your experience, is there any story about a pitch that you saw and you say, wow, this pitch is already outstanding and really something that impressed you, coming from some of the people that wanted to looking for funds?
Absolutely. So, as an investor myself, the companies I have invested in are those that had incredible stories, that were exceptional storytellers. That's one big part of it. And ones that really knew their sector inside out, that really knew their industry, that made it very, very clear and reassuring that they knew what they were doing because they had really studied the industry in and out. And then, of course, in terms of pitch decks, obviously images, videos are much more powerful than a lot of text. So those are some of the things that we look for.
So there is when the branding is coming, and actually the graphics and the impact, it is playing a very big role on that. And when the companies are showing that story behind, as you will say, it is what really is a win and what make the investors probably decide easier. Even always I have been hearing that the idea is the most important. But in your personal opinion, the ideas mixing with the pitch and mixing with the graphics, at the end, the investors are looking all those things together, or if the idea is good, they are going, doesn't matter what are the graphics or the story behind.
So in this case, I'm talking about early stage investing at pre-seed and seed. So this is very early stage. So within that context, the most important, I would say, is actually the team at that stage, because the idea might change. It's the team and the market. Because it's not just about finding a team that has a vision, but actually a team that has the executional power. And you can only see that based on what they've done in the past, right? Have they exited companies before? How can you, because, having a vision is like, a lot of dreamers have visions, and that's beautiful. But very few people actually have the capacity, the tenacity to execute on that vision. So when you invest early stage in an investor, it's really identifying those people that you have the confidence will actually gonna go execute the plan, right? So that's a big one for early stage investing.
Yeah, of course, I can imagine. And you are completely right. I mean, it's different things that you are seeing based on the level of the investment, if it is a seed, pre-seed, or other levels of investment. So it's important to know that, to be prepared, to deliver a good pitch, to have the things, the ideas, and the team already aligned to be part of receiving funds. So, well, Elena, I don't know if part of coming a little bit more to your personal life, you was talking about the showing up. Do you have any recommendations or advice for all those entrepreneurs that want to be succeed in their process to raising funds that you wanted to share with us?
Yes, something that I wanted to share with you all that we discussed, you and I, Maria, earlier, which has to do with branding, because I know this podcast is also about branding, is actually the importance nowadays to build an audience. Whether you are an entrepreneur, an investor, whatever your role might be. And a good example is this week we had Mr. Beast, the YouTuber, on the cover of Time magazine. And why that is newsworthy is because media is changing now. So, we're moving from institutions creating entertainment and information to actually being individuals leading it. So it's a big shift, right? Mr. Beast can pretty much make anything go viral nowadays. And you're really seeing a shift in marketing from institutional-led media and marketing to people, individual-led marketing. So as entrepreneurs, as investors, I'm a big believer on building an audience because it's a direct way to speak to your audience. And it has a lot of value today. Also, another example of that is we've seen, the Kardashians, they've built massive audiences, and that has actually turned into, for example, one of the Kardashian girls, she started a makeup brand and then was able, due to her audience, to ramp up the valuation of her company considerably. That's not the only reason, but one of the reasons. And so we're seeing that more and more, how building an audience becomes valuable because it's a direct access to consumers.
Well, what a valuable information, and what you said is building this audience, building these communities that are really make them loyal, to have this emotional connection. That is actually the meaning of branding, making those emotional connections with the people deciding to go and buy your product. When you have those communities, of course, everything that you are delivering there is based on trust. So building this trust is part of course, what is making that. And the other purpose of the podcast actually is women empowerment. So just to, maybe start to wrap up, would you like to give advice to women directly that are in the process of raising funds? And I know that this is general, because it's not just, I know that your purpose is climate, but in general, all those women, because we wanted to attract more women entrepreneurs that wanted to say, I want to go for it, but it's important to give the tools. So what will be your advice for those women that wanted to have a new companies?
Well, as you know, women are leading on climate action and as climate leaders. Most chief sustainability officers around the world are women, and we're seeing increasingly female investors as well. So, and entrepreneurs. So my advice has been based on my personal journey, because I think I grew up much more accommodating. Always wanted to maybe sometimes even make myself a little small to make sure that I wouldn't overshadow the man in the room, to make sure that they would feel comfortable. And I think with time, I learned to be much more assertive. I learned to be much more clear about my needs, what I want, where I am going. And I think it may not be natural for most women, because that's not the way most of us were raised. At least that's not the way I was raised. But actually to be, I've discovered with time that the clearer I am on my needs, and being actually able to express them, the more I actually get respected, and the more I get honored and supported by women and men. And so for me, it's been a big shift in terms of, I thought that by being accommodating and sweet and a little bit in the shadow, I would be more supported. But actually, I realized that by being more outspoken and clear on what I want and what I stand for, living more on my own terms, that actually men and women enjoyed, helping, supporting more. So for me, it was a big shift in terms of how to show up. That I think I hear a lot of women having similar experiences and saying the same thing.
Yeah. Wow. I love that because, it's coming from the personal experience is something that really make a click on me, and I'm feeling completely identified. You wanted to tell us where the people can contacting you. Where are you now? What kind of, let's say, actually people are you helping and want to attract as well to invest?
Absolutely. So I am based in New York City right now since a few months, but I work with entrepreneurs all around the world. So entrepreneurs in my Unstoppable fundraising programs are based, Brazil, Germany, Singapore, everywhere. So lucky that I can work remotely. So if you'd like to get in touch, I'm present on LinkedIn under my name, Helena Wasserman, and also on Instagram under I am Helena Was. And a lot of my content is about fundraising, entrepreneurship, climate innovations, and ways to be solutions in the space. So yeah, feel free to follow me, to sign up to my newsletter as well, so that you can learn more ways to find solutions to the climate crisis.
Well, Helena, thank you very much for being part of the Brilliantly Branded podcast, to share your knowledge, to share your experiences, and to give us a lot of food for thought that probably is part of the things that we are wanted to put across the podcast and learning with our guests. So thank you very much for being here, Helena, and thank you for sharing all those content with us.
Thank you for inviting Maria. It was a pleasure, and keep in touch.
We hope you have been inspired by this content and join us for future episodes of the Brilliantly Branded podcast. We will continue exploring the power of branding and the stories behind successful brands. And remember, if you know a woman who has built a successful brand with a unique approach and a story to share, please refer them to our podcast. We would love to learn from their experiences and share their story with our listeners. Stay tuned for most episodes of Brilliantly Branded, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, on our YouTube channel for more branding insights and women empowerment. Until the next episode, ciao ciao.